السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد عليه وعلى آله وصحبه أفضل الصلاة والتسليم. Continuing the series related to the stories of the Quran. And inshallah today we talk about the story of Talut and Jalut. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Surah Al-Baqrah, says بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ألم تر إلى الملأ من بني إسرائيل من بعد موسى إذ قالوا لنبي لهم ابعث لنا ملكا نقاتل في سبيل الله قال هل عسيتم إن كتب عليكم القتال ألا تقاتلوا قالوا وما لنا ألا نقاتل في سبيل الله وقد أخرجنا من ديارنا وأبنائنا فلما كتب عليهم القتال تولوا إلا قليلا منهم والله عليم بالظالمين. So the story starts with generations after Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam. Bani Israel, they deviated from the teaching of Musa. So they were defeated, they were humiliated, they were kicked out of their homes, and their children were taken hostage. And this is a consequence not just for Bani Israel, applies for any ummah when they deviate from the teaching of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I think we see signs of that sometimes in our ummah. So Allah didn't name the prophet, but because it's immaterial, so they went to their prophet and they said, we need you to assign a king to lead us in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Their prophet knows them very well. He knows that they are people of talk, but very little action. So he warned them, are you sure if Allah prescribed fighting upon you, you will really fight? And they said, we have all the reasons to fight. We have been kicked out of our homes, our children taken. And then, subhanAllah, as Allah decreed fighting upon them, and now you got your wish. تَوَلَّوْا إِلَّا قَلِيلًا مِنْهُمْ. Only few stuck to the covenant, to the promise given to their prophet and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And again, there is a lesson for Ummah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam here. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا لِمَ تَقُولُونَ مَا لَا تَفْعَلُونَ كَبُرَ مَقْتًا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ أَن تَقُولُوا مَا لَا تَفْعَلُونَ. How hated it is by Allah to say something that you do not practice yourself. Now, we talked before in the story of Al-Baqrah how argumentative Bani Israel is. So here, they start arguing once their prophet tells them that Allah has assigned Talut to be their king. وَقَالَ لَهُمْ نَبِيُّهُمْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ بَعَثَ لَكُمْ طَالُوتَ مَلِكًا. They submit? No. They go to their nature, second nature. وَكَانَ الْإِنسَانُ أَكْثَرَ شَيْءٍ جَدَلًا. SubhanAllah, we are the most argumentative beings. So قالوا أَنَّ يَكُونُ لَهُ الْمُلْكُ عَلَيْنَا وَنَحْنُ أَحَقُّ بِالْمُلْكِ مِنْهُ. How can he be? He's an average Joe. He's not coming from an influential family. He's not rich. He's not wealthy. We are more deserving to be the king than his. And here is another lesson again. Their prophet replied, إِنَّ اللَّهَ اصْطَفَاهُ عَلَيْكُمْ وَزَادَهُ بَسْطَةً فِي الْعِلْمِ وَالْجِسْمِ. Allah chose him, He gave him knowledge, and He gave him strength. Now, مقياس الله سبحانه وتعالى, Allah, the way Allah looks at people is different than we look at each other. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, doesn't value us based on what family or what wealth or what social status or what position in the community you have. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a different scale of evaluating people. Apparently the argument continues and they need a proof that their prophet is telling them the truth. So their prophet tells them, okay, there is a sign that Allah has chosen you. إن آية ملكه أن يأتيكم التابوت فيه سكينة من ربكم وبقية مما ترك آل موسى وآل هارون تحمله الملائكة. The word tabut is a wooden box, it's a chest. It's only mentioned in the Quran twice, in this ayah and in Surah Taha, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inspired the mother of Musa to throw him and يقذفيه في التابوت فاقذفيه في اليم. So people say this is the same wooden box, and it has artifacts or remnants, has some from the household of Musa and Harun. They say it has the stick of Musa, it has some of the Torah pages originally received by Musa from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the sign here is this box apparently was taken by the enemy. They used to think it's a blessed box. It helped them at time of war. Now that box that's taken from them will come. And who's carrying that box? The angels. You cannot see the angels, but you're going to see a box walking toward them, subhanAllah. Now, Talut starts with his army. They say Bani Israel at that time were hundreds of thousands. But his army, the people who stuck with him initially, were 80,000. Now, there will be another test. What is the test? فَلَمَّا فَصَلَ طَالُوتُ بِالْجُنُودِ قَالَ إِنَّ اللَّهَ مُبْتَلِيكُمْ بِنَهَرٍ فَمَنْ شَرِبَ مِنْهُ فَلَيْسَ مِنِّي وَمَنْ لَمْ يَطْعَمْهُ فَإِنَّهُ مِنِّي. Allah will test you with a river. I know you are thirsty, you are walking through desert. You are not allowed to drink from it. The only exception is إِلَّا مَنْ اغترف غرفة بيده. يعني you have a handful, literally, to just squish your thirst. And that's the maximum you can have, but it's better not to have any. If you are going to fight for the sake of Allah, you need to have the willpower. You need to have the self-control. Is water lawful or unlawful? Lawful. But also, al-ikthar min al-mubahat, sometimes weaken your resolve, weaken your way of worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you accumulate too much even of lawful things, that actually deviates you away from the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what happened? فَشَرِبُوا مِنْهُ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا مِنْهُ. The majority of them drank for it. They say only 4,000 out of the 80,000 listened to the command of their leader, subhanAllah. So they stay behind. Now the hundreds of thousands are down to 4,000. Then weakness filled their heart. قالوا لا طاقة لنا اليوم بجالوت وجنوده. We are few, they are well prepared. The IOF or the IDF has hundreds of thousands, have Apache helicopter, have this, have that. You know, we have nothing. So the believers told them, قال الذين يظنون أنهم ملاقو الله كم من فئة قليلة غلبت فئة كثيرة بإذن الله. It's not about the numbers, it's not about the weaponry. It is believing in Allah and believing that you are returning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We say that those who really remained with Talut were 314 out of the 4,000, which is the same number of the followers of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in the Battle of Badr, and they say this ayat was revealed literally before Badr. And we come to the conclusion, وَلَمَّا بَرَزُوا لِجَالُوتَ وَجُنُودِهِ قالوا ربنا أفرغ علينا صبرا وثبت أقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين فهزموهم بإذن الله وقتل داوود جالوت. We need dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because don't underestimate dua. We need dua every morning here. Wallahi, it has a lot of power. Allah will give victory to the sincere servants who are making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they say that in the actual story that Jalut and his army was, they had iron covering all their bodies, they had horses, they had everything. The believers had very little, nothing. So typically in these fights, the leader of the army say, any challenger, So Jalut himself came out, covered in iron, except just his forehead and eyes, so he can see. So who stepped out? A young man named Dawood alayhi salam. What he had in his hand, what weapon? Slingshot and 3 rocks. And subhanAllah, with the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he threw it, and he hit Talut literally between the eyes, and he fell dead, and the army of Talut literally disappeared and ran away afterwards, with the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a beautiful story, there is a lot of lessons to be learned from it. I apologize, it took a little longer, but I wasn't prepared. جزاكم الله خير. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين الحمد لله.